Welcome to another episode of Tapped in Sports. It's your host, Leo Luna, and I'd like to welcome a special guest here today is Jose Sanchez of Sports Illustrated, beat writer for the San Francisco 49ers. How's everything going, Jose?
I'm doing smooth, Leo. Appreciate you for having me on, my man.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to go ahead and round out a few questions regarding the 49ers, obviously here with Jose. And the first one is, what were your expectations heading into last season? Obviously, there's big question marks around Garoppolo. He had the 5 interceptions in practice, and then that preseason game at Denver where everyone was kind of questioning, do we go to Nick Mullins? And obviously, everyone got a little dramatic and overreacted on the situation, seeing how the season played out. But obviously, I'd just like to hear your take after you saw those two things and obviously wrote about it.
Yeah, it's first of all, it's just preseason. All right, it's better to make those mistakes for Garoppolo's sake. I mean, come on, the guy was coming off a torn ACL. Some athletes in any sports are lucky to even return to the capacity that he did. So I mean, I never read too much into those preseason. If anything, it was like, all right, it's good. Let him learn from this preseason experience because he hadn't got any live action, for like over a year. Mm-hmm. So aside from that, expectations, like anyone, was of course I thought they were going 12-4. No, of course not. No one saw that coming. Come on. I saw this team going around 8-8. The defense, if anything, was the most that took everyone by storm. No one saw that pass rush being to the degree of eliteness. Like I had a feeling I knew they were going to be very good.
Right.
You acquired D Ford. You hope Nick Bosa was going to pan out with his hype, and Buckner was going to Buckner. And then Eric Armstead was indeed that X factor and panning out with that defense. But man, it literally how everything just clicked, came together like a puzzle set. And it was just amazing to see. So they blasted my expectations, and pretty much I would like to think almost everyone who covers the 49ers. And then just everything came together. And then anyone who wanted to nitpick those Garoppolo's performance in the preseason, or just, everyone wants to go for the reaction over every little thing in any sport. Like, oh, look at that one pass, or look at that one play in game. And it gets way over the top. But personally, I like to be level there. Let's calm down. One play, one quarter, one game doesn't define a person, especially a preseason game where he's supposed to make those mistakes. So just a hell of a run by that team last season.
Exactly. And I remember I was getting a lot of questions like, oh, is Garoppolo done? Is Garoppolo done? You guys are going to have to move on from him. And I was like, everybody relax. Like, there's nothing wrong with throwing interceptions in practice, because that's the reason why you're practicing. The way I look at it is the 49ers defense could have been in a cover 3 scheme. And Kyle Shanahan is, obviously the wizard he is, wants to work out a certain play. So he wants to see, okay, is this hot read going to work in this cover 3 right now against the defense? So it's some of that, as well as trying to fit in tight windows that you normally wouldn't do in games. So I'm the same with you as far as being level-headed, not overreacting. As far as, since we're on to this level-headed and not overreacting, everyone wants to blame Garoppolo now for the Super Bowl, and he seems to be the common scapegoat of the team. You were there. You were present. You covered the game. What did you see that went wrong?
So watching that game, it felt like, watching the 49ers this year from every game, especially, how many teams did they blow out? Like at least 6, 5 or something like that this season, including the postseason. So there's some moments where, all right, I could start feeling like it's going to be over, maybe get ahead of my article. But that Super Bowl game, it's like, no, you cannot count out Patrick Mahomes for anything. And in my head, the only thing that the 49ers could do to blow this 10-point lead is if everything goes wrong. And that is exactly what happened. Everything went wrong. You can't blame a 10-point swing to one player, quarterback, Jimmy Garoppolo, especially since not one thing has been the detracting reason for why the 49ers even lost some of those games. It literally was everything. But Garoppolo is to blame, but he's not the sole reason. He left a lot of meat on the bone with Kittle multiple times wide open. Some of them was because of poor pass protection. The defense giving him that 3rd and 15. Emmanuel Mosley, what are you doing, man? Just stay disciplined into your 3rd in that cover 3, and that's likely not going to be a catch by Tyreek Hill. I saw Jimmy Ward in his presser within the last month to us on the Zoom call himself saying, look, if I don't bite on that stab, that head fake by Tyreek Hill, then I'm taking that to the house or I'm stopping that play. And it's I guess it's the right answer for Ward, like trying to take ownership because he does
Right.
take that center third, but it was Emmanuel Mosley. It was Emmanuel Mosley, and I know some people want to run with this. It's the same way when people want to run with, oh, Garoppolo, that one poor quarter, all of a sudden the 49ers need to move on. Oh, Emmanuel Mosley, that one poor play, all of a sudden the 49ers don't have an adequate secondary, which is completely false. Literally everything went wrong. The defense, the refs kind of a little bit funky calling, no holdings, and I still to this day will hold and say that PI by Kittle was not a PI. I understand there was a little bit of extension, but come on, it's the Super Bowl, man. You can't call something that nitpicky that close.
Yeah.
Come on, really? And so literally everything went wrong, man. Domino effect. Just tip the domino from Garoppolo, the defense, the ref. And if there's one person I'm not going to put much blame in, it's Kyle Shanahan. I know people want to say he was conservative and such, especially with that end of the first half. But hey, if that PI call to Kittle doesn't become reality, then we're not having this conversation. The only one minor thing you can say is why did you give Raheem Mostert more carries? But overall, his play calling was pretty sound. It's just the execution and just everything just unraveled.
Yeah, honestly, I agree with him as far as not calling a timeout before the punt, because Kansas City, they did screw that up. The 49ers should have got the ball on the 1 yard line instead of the 20, and they still should have gotten down to field goal range. I don't know how Al Riveron in New York is still in that position. I don't know how he says no pass interference on Kyle Rudolph. Oh, he did not push off. But then in the biggest game of the season, oh yes, George Kittle did push off. Are you kidding me?
At least, which is wasn't even nearly as blatant.
Right.
And I guess it's just because the only way you can compare the two scenarios is one is in the clutch and the other one is just the middle of the game. So, when it's the middle of the game, it's like almost like a sandwich. When it's in the middle of the sandwich between the buns, they're gonna be normal. Then once you start getting towards the bun part of the sandwich, then that's when they're gonna keep their hands in their pocket. There wasn't really many flags called in the fourth quarter, especially in those final minutes. But I mean, still, I hated that call. I've had plenty of back and forth with other friends and local media who, especially after that call happened, they said that I didn't have a problem with the call. I mean, it's all about, at this point, it really is about perspective, how you view it. It's still hard for me, just being someone who just loves the competition of the game, that you got to call that in that situation.
Right, and I think there was a play as well as in that fourth quarter. Kendrick Bourne had an option route. From what it looked like, instead of busting the post corner like most receivers do when you're even with the one-on-one, he decided to hit a comeback route in front of the 3rd and 10, so in front of the first down. Garoppolo, that's why if you look back at that play, I believe it was a 3rd and 10 play, Garoppolo just threw it to basically nowhere. And that's because he was expecting Kendrick Bourne to go ahead and hit that post corner. It's not a dig at Kendrick Bourne. I think he was huge for this team and their success. I don't think he gets there without the way he stepped up and played. But that's just another thing that we're adding on to, okay, it's not just the quarterback. This was kind of the whole team feel.
Exactly. I mean, just final points on Garoppolo. I mean, he was on his way to making the case to being the team MVP had they won that Super Bowl. It wasn't until 7 minutes were left that really he just was horrendous. There's no way to defend him in that fourth quarter. He did have, I believe, what was it, like a 3.4 quarterback rating? Or it was something bizarre. It was definitely single digits. So he did play poorly. Yes, he deserves some of the slander, some of the smoke, but does he deserve to have all of the cake thrown in his face? No. Just maybe a slice, maybe a layer, but not the whole entire platter.
Yeah, I agree. Not to have 3 different names thrown out to replace your job. I don't think he deserves that in one off season.
Not at all.
Perfect. So as far as moving forward for this team, they decided to go ahead and get rid of DeForest Buckner. He was asking north of $20 million. Joe Staley retired. Emmanuel Sanders decided to go take more money in a more pass-happy offense. What is your take with what the 49ers did with this draft? Went ahead and took Javon Kinlaw to kind of replace DeForest Buckner there on the D-line, and then took Brandon Aiyuk to kind of replace Emmanuel Sanders out at wide.
I loved the 49ers off-season plan. I don't want to make sound like I'm a sheep or something like that, because I'm losing more on the critical side, especially with drafts. But it's kind of hard to really be critical. If you really want to be critical about the 49ers off-season plans and the way they attack the draft, it's a little nitpicky. The only
Right.
thing I think I probably nitpicked about their draft was trading up for Aiyuk. Was it necessary? Did they really need to give all those picks? And I know you hear the arguments, well, Green Bay was sitting right there, or so-and-so was sitting right there, all those teams, and I
Right.
get it. And the point is, overall, they did fine. They did superb, personally, I think. I liked the Kinlaw pick. I know there's some concerns because he is more raw, although I see a lot of experts go back and forth from Brian Baldinger to, I believe his name is Matt Boswell, of course, the ESPN
Okay.
matchup. They're just going back and forth about where you can look about him. But from what I saw, Kinlaw, the only flaw with him is a little bit of his run game, which he just needs
Hmm.
to develop into. And if he really gets close, then boom, it was a great pick, especially after Shanahan explains why he went again with another first pick in defensive lineman. It's like he pretty much is a shoo-in that the Niners are going to draft the defensive line in the first round.
Right.
And he said pretty much, hey, it starts with the trenches. If I get a good defense, it gets stops. That means it gives me more possessions, which, hey, that's
Exactly.
perfectly makes sense to me. And the fact that he is good at what he does, Shanahan, that is, then that means he doesn't really need to go higher for those playmakers on offense. Although you did go trade up for Aiyuk, but I mean, for a team like the 49ers, where's the third or fourth round pick going to fit in the squad? Are they even going to make it? So what's the point of having those picks? So that degree makes sense. And then David Lombardi, that's the one I got to give the hat tip to for that point is, yeah, what's the third and fourth round pick gonna do with the team? So Aiyuk, great. You mentioned that they got him as a replacement for Sanders. I think it's more so in terms of production standpoint. But
Yeah.
overall, I think the way the Niners are looking at their wide receiver core is they don't look at it like most people do prototypically by wide receiver 1, 2, 3, so on and so forth. It's literally just
Matchup.
George Kittle, Deebo Samuel, everyone else, in my opinion. It's really just going to be how exactly like you said, how he feels about the matchup, who's riding the hot hand, what's going to dictate it. And
Hmm.
this is the first season that it looks like the 49ers finally have an adequate group at the wide receiver position. Even Juwan Jennings, a lot of players who are going to be on notice, like Richie James, Dante Pettis, who's going to make it and such. So it's going to be interesting from that group. And the defense, how it's going to work with Kinlaw. The 49ers did what they could within their own power. And it's really hard to nitpick against them. So overall, they did fantastic job, personally, I believe, in that draft.
Yeah. And if you could get, say, 75% of DeForest Buckner's production, that's a win for a rookie. That is a
Mm-hmm.
win. 75% of what DeForest Buckner did last year. And as far as the receiving core, I love what Brandon Aiyuk can do for this team. His catch radius is 1 inch less than Megatron, which is insane. And I think it goes unmentioned how much that's going to help out Garoppolo because Garoppolo does tend to throw the ball a little high. At least he did last season. So if you're giving a guy with the arm length of, I believe it was 80 inches or so, you're giving arm length like that for a quarterback who tends to throw high, it's kind of a perfect match in that
Mm-hmm.
kind of aspect. And as far as I think Kendrick Bourne, anyways, is kind of going to be that second receiver with this short off season, and we may see Brandon Aiyuk later towards the end of the season have more production like Deebo Samuel did, just because of this such a weird off season. He's not getting that
Mm-hmm.
full work in with Jimmy Garoppolo,
No, you're exactly right. It's you really can't really expect too much from all these rookies, especially at first, because it's
especially at
okay. It's
receiver
exactly,
out of all
especially from the
positions. Yeah,
receivers and Kyle Shanahan's offense. All right, well, imagine the stuff they gotta imagine and everything. Just talking with some of the receivers from last season, it's just like, oh my god, you gotta know all this stuff, and they weren't even letting me know a good portion of it. So I
yeah,
mean, it's just, yeah, Ayuk's not going to be an instant impact, not yet. I do think, like you said, I think he's going to be exactly like Deebo Samuel last season, where you expect him to take off in the second
yep,
half of the year. Um, and the fact that, like I said, that they actually have a strong core group at receiver gives you more leeway now, because now you have
yep,
Trent Taylor coming back, you have Jalen Hurd, who can finally try to blossom into what everyone thinks he's supposed to be. And then who knows about Pettis, who knows about Jenny, any of these players, about stepping up. And then there's also Travis Benjamin, who's no lock, but if he does make it cool, then you have someone who's that ragged-edged veteran there that you don't really have to have too many concerns about. And
exactly.
right now, that's a good position to be in. One thing I do want people to taper off on expectations, especially, is for Kinlaw. A lot of fans I'm seeing on Twitter really were
10 plus
expecting
sacks.
defense. Yes, it's like, okay, can you see 10 plus sacks? I could, yeah, because he's going to be the fourth best defensive lineman, fourth best. He
Right.
could be probably less, because DJ, those other depth players are very good as well.
Yes.
So in that sense, yeah, he's not going to be the focal point, so he can sneak by.
Hmm.
But, to expect that he's going to replicate Buckner's 2019 season, you're pretty much
Right.
saying, oh, Kinlaw is going to be an all-pro his rookie season. Like, come on, let's
Yeah.
taper the expectations a little bit. If he gets somewhere a little bit to where Buckner's pass rushing case is, then great. And
Hmm.
like I said earlier, his run defense is really where it's going to be a little curious because, Kinlaw didn't really start taking off his final year in college until
Right.
after some games. And so he really didn't get to cement himself too much as like that established player. So now that learning curve, I feel like that learning curve is going to start again. And especially without those OTAs, which is an underrated aspect of having those reps, of getting to know your players, your teammates, getting to know how to learn better techniques. So Chris Kaceric's going to have his hands full, and I believe he is going to make Kinlaw into a beast of a player because Kaceric is a madman. You should see him
Yeah.
out there at practice. The guy, you could probably hear him from where he's screaming. You could probably hear him from all the way from Oakland or Napa or something like that. This guy
Yeah.
will just get in your face, he demands the best from you because he knows you can produce the best.
Yeah.
So
I've
it's
heard.
just yeah.
I've heard from the players that there's been like nothing different with having the virtual meetings with Kraseric. He's just still riled up, ready to go.
Which is the perfect way. So
Yeah.
that's pretty much he's got a handful to deal with, but if there's anyone who can do it, it's him. So let's just taper a little bit expectation when it comes to Javon Kinlaw.
Right. And something I would not be shocked with, honestly, is if Kinlaw's not a full-time starter on that defensive line. Bosa's a full-time starter. Armstead's a full-time starter. Their base last year was Bosa, Buckner, or Bosa, DJ Jones, Buckner, and Armstead. I would not be surprised to starting the season at having Bosa, DJ Jones, Julian Taylor, and Eric Armstead, just because Julian
Mm-hmm.
Taylor he's really good against the run. You saw last season against Washington, he did have I believe it was a fumble recovery, or he
Yep.
might have forced it, one or the other. But he is good against the run, and just might help blossom Javon Kinlaw to say, hey, you're gonna be a pass specialist. Like, don't worry about the one right now. Just go out there, get the quarterback, and let's get our offense the ball.
Right on the money. I'm with you 100%. I don't think Kinlaw, at least at first, is going to be in there every down. There's just no way. And then once again, without OTAs, kind of hurts him. And
Right.
run defense, it's not like he's bad at it, but
Mm-hmm.
what did he get drafted for at 14th overall? To be a run defender? No, everyone just talks about his pass rushing defense. Not really many explained of how valiant he is as a run defender, which is a hard part in people's games that people
Mm-hmm.
kind of undervalue a lot. And that's people kind of did a little bit with Buckner. It's like, hey, you could do both. I
Yeah.
mean, that's why kind of people sometimes thought that Buckner was going to get chosen over Armstead. But
Right.
if Kinlaw needs to get that run defense at least somewhat to a level where he can become an almost every down guy, because if he's not in there, offenses are going to know that that's going to be a run. They're prepared for the run. They could just probably check out of that and get less valiant, less versatile, less lethal pass rushers in that game. They could just attack the Niners defense. So that's in
Exactly.
that sense, I think the Niners defense is going to take a drop off, not just because it's Kinlaw's a lesser version of Buckner, but might start turning out to be a little bit predictable. But Taylor is the
Right.
better fit for those early obvious rundowns, though.
Exactly. Like that, game against the Los Angeles Rams last year where it was just early runs, the whole drive, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, that was the last time they did anything that the rest of the game. And then we touched on the receivers a bit. My personal opinion is George Kittle doesn't get extended until after the season. I believe they do want to clear up some more cap, possibly D Ford if things don't work out as far as health wise. He's not able to consistently be on the field. He's playing about 20% of snaps. That's someone I could see open up the market, as well as what happens with Richard Sherman. Whether he gets re-signed or not, that's $13 million. That's not going to be on the cap next year, at least as of now. So there's more room to wiggle next season. Where do you see that necessarily happening? Do you see it them trying to work something out right now, even though there's questions about revenue with fans being in the stadium, or do you see it happening at the end of the year?
It's really a coin toss, honestly. It's a complicated situation. It'd be much more clarity to see if if this pandemic wasn't happening and there wasn't questions surrounding the revenue, then I'd 100% say, of course, they're going to try to get a deal done within the parameters of this offseason. I do still think that to a certain degree, they're going to try to get something done, but it's really tough because they can't. No one, not even the NFL can foreshadow what's going to happen. But there
Right.
has already been like some speculation of what kind of revenue is losses everyone's looking, because everyone always assumes, oh, the cap's going to raise cap. Well, hey, look, that cap is not going to raise, and that's going to take some hit now. So that's why it doesn't behoove them to try to work out, at least from the 49ers perspective, to work out a contract now. A reason being is because what do the 49ers love to do? They love to spread out that money on the cap in years down and from years down the road. Look at what they did with Armstead. His deal is technically a six-year deal and stuff like that, but really one of them is just there just to spread it out more evenly and more beneficial for the team. And Kittle, that's going to be even much more tricky because he's probably going to look for obviously that higher wide receiver money, around $19 million. I personally think that he deserves,
Yes.
and especially with that guaranteed money. And it's going to be tough to tell because they don't know. They can say, oh, here you go. Here's this money for next season. And then it's not there. Now where you're going to cut costs for him. Like you said, Sherman's going to be off the books. Ford's probably already in the plans for them to get rid of once his number starts to get lower, pretty much off the books.
Yeah.
And it's just, it really is a tricky situation for them. And it's got to be, both sides are just going to have to like level each other and be transparent, no trickery. And I think that is capable. It's not too often that both team agent / player have that goodwill that, just like where they really want to get a deal done with each other. A lot of times they're just messing around, screwballing each other in that sense. I think these two sides really know that they want to be in a healthy marriage for years to come. And maybe Kittle and his side are understanding like, hey, they could probably tell them, we want to get you this top dollar. We just don't know what that dollar is because of so much speculation. We don't know what's going to happen for the future. So It's a really tricky situation. If some cap specialist, I know Jason over the cap does a great job over there. He's already speculated how it looks like. And it's a really tricky situation. And at this point, there's really no reason for any contract talks to be gaining traction. That's why we all saw Mike Silver report that both teams are far apart. They're far apart because they don't know what's going on. So
exactly,
it shouldn't be received negatively. It's just the reality of the situation.
And something I see positive from George Kittle's perspective compared to other players, he never once, when he's asked about it, never complains about the contract, never like says, oh, I really want to get something done. He just avoids it and says, ask my agent. Every time, ask my agent. So that's something I see very positive. He does want to be with the 49ers. The 49ers obviously want him. Like you said, with everything going on, it's hard to see what happens. It's kind of a waiting period. So, we need to see if we're going to have games with fans. We don't know yet. So
it's pretty much just a close your eyes, cover your eyes in the dark situation, then spin around 3 times, see what happens. Because it's a really randomized situation. It's just really hard to tell.
Exactly. And since we're talking about all the craziness that's going on with this world, obviously we're fighting for equality in this country. How important do you think it was for the locker room? Obviously, seeing some of the players speak up about it on what Kyle Shanahan had said. How important do you think that was?
It pretty much it needed to get said, especially from Kyle Shanahan, being that he is an older white male. And personally, I appreciated it. I took it. I loved it. And me being a full-born Mexican first-generation guy here, it's really hard to get in a position to where I was, where anyone else is. I know everyone's facing, every other minorities, black especially right now, facing those rigorous, treacherous right now world that we're in with all police brutality and just systemic racism. So It needed to get said by Kyle Shanahan, and he was on the money. I loved it. It was speaking poetry to me. I wish more other NFL coaches, because predominantly they're all white, would have spoken up, because he made that point. He says, how the heck are there only four non-white coaches? And we talk about how Robert Saleh didn't get a head coaching job, but all of a sudden they're giving Kevin Stefanski with no experience,
who got dominated,
and all this. Yes, and all these other coaches who was like, how'd you get this job? Joe Judge, you serious? Robert Saleh, like, okay, he's not like he led like the best defense in the league, but sure, So I mean, it needed to get said, and that's why this team loves each other so much, and so much camaraderie, so much unity, and why they got as far as they did, not just because of talent and because they're a great schemer with coaches and such, but because of how their belief in one another. How many times did we see in a press conference where they just brushed off the credit and pointed it to someone else, or they shouldered the blame and took it in like a catch. And it just speaks volumes. And it starts with Kyle Shanahan, the culture he's building, and the type of guy that he is. There is no sense of falsehood with him. And he speaks from the heart and he speaks from the truth. And anybody, especially me, I loved hearing from him he says, and I just hope more people end up speaking out, because right now with it's the situation, think about it, with all the protests and marches going on, considering this COVID-19, and they're still going out and doing that. I mean, I went to a protest in my city last week, and I didn't care about the repercussions. I mean, I of course social distanced and did a mask and everything, stayed not too close to everyone, but it's kind of shows you how it's worth the risk, and enough's enough. And there needs to be some change so we can finally have equality for one each other and somewhat respect. You don't gotta like each other. You don't have to have the same opinion.
Yeah.
But it's just some point the hate needs to stop, and that way we can all just have that have what the United States is supposed to be. United, not divided states.
Exactly, and I think that was great for Kyle Shanahan speaking up and saying that, and everyone, was excited to see that Shanahan said that. I think Kendrick Bourne tweeted saying, "That's my coach," and he's been very outspoken with Shanahan as far as the comments that Shanahan has made. And one coach that should have got a head coaching job that didn't even really get to a final round as far as what Saleh did is the OC from the Kansas City Chiefs, Eric Bieniemy. I believe that's how you pronounce his last name. He's done a hell of a job with Patrick Mahomes the past 2 seasons. Yes, Andy Reid is the true OC of the team, but he didn't call every play as well. And there has been OCs to get jobs under Andy Reid anyways, such as Doug Peterson in Philadelphia and Frank Wright in Indianapolis. And they both had success. And then a 2-year stretch with Eric Bieniemy as OC, and he doesn't even go to a final stage. Yeah, it obviously shows something in the NFL, and it'll be nice to see them show more equality and more support of their players like the NBA has shown for the past few years that I can remember.
And Bieniemy not getting that, like you said, that final stage of interviews or even coming close to any type of talks is a perfect example of just how any average person in this day and age, just any average minority, no matter what kind of background you come from, it's the same thing. It's like, okay, me and a white guy competing for, I don't know, a writing job, who's most likely going to get it? You would say whoever works hard and maybe that produces the better content, such and such, whatever you want to fluff it up. But sometimes it might just get skewed just because of my name. I can't say the color of my skin because I look white. So, I mean, it's just, so it's off and on about how the situation is. I've had plenty of friends and family who've been gone through that, and the NFL is a perfect example. And that's how all of a sudden, look what kind of statement they come out with. We were wrong. We're in the wrong for not listening to our players, which, all right, 4 years later, guess who was trying to tell you guys and peacefully Colin Kaepernick tell you guys, but no, they just wanted to spin the narrative and make it all about me instead of listening to those of the less fortunate. So
yeah, it'll be great to see Roger Goodell say Colin Kaepernick.
I think he's going to bite his tongue off before he ever does that, unfortunately, which would be great. I mean, the fact that he already came out with that apology just pretty much just said, all right, you just pretty much admitted, hey, Cap, you were right, we were wrong, and we have been blackballing you, because it was pretty obvious. I mean, Stevie Wonder saw that Colin Kaepernick was getting blackballed. I mean, what the hell? So it's just pretty much with all this, everything, all this proof is just coming finally up to the surface, and everything is finally backing up to what those who've been protesting have been preaching about to this day.
Right. And lastly, I wanted to wrap this up with, last year we saw kind of X factors just generate naturally with Eric Armstead, Jimmy Ward. Who would you think or predict, based on everything you're seeing, based on everything you're hearing, to be the X factors that generate organically this coming season?
I think, and who I also think it's going to be, who I just fell in love with from when he stormed onto the scene last season, I think Dre Greenlaw is going to be that guy. He's just this guy is just a freaking horse. He's like he's just out there just head hunting and there's hardly really anything he does wrong. I know people say, well, look at his past coverage grades, such and such compared to Quan. I think he's better than Quan easily, and that's why also I think after the season Quan's gone. Especially since his number is going to be lower. Dre Greenlaw is the better option. He's cheaper, more contract. You have his rookie contract control for the next few years.
Right.
And it's just, and that's just the unfortunate reality. It'd be great to hold all three for years to come, but you got to look at cost. I mean, we were just talking about George Kittle, and that's the situation. That's probably they can take those pennies and from Alexander, put it into Kittle. I mean, I think everyone's going to agree that hell yeah, I'd do that in a heartbeat. But Greenlaw, I think he really is poised, and we already saw glimmers from his first start against Seattle. He really is a legendary Seahawk killer. That he almost had the 49ers won that Week 10 Monday Night Football game, then we really could have started this theme, because he performed so admirably and just out there with the swagger, like, holy crap, this is a rookie, and just suddenly starting on prime time against a good team. Yeah, 5th round, and he almost had the potential game-sealing pick if the 49ers didn't miss that kick. But pretty much just ended the Seahawks' hopes on the goal line in their house, which just felt even like better for a fan. And it's just, wow, just Greenlaw's all over the place. I really think he's going to come into the zone. He's going to be a better coverage player and play the run even better. He's just meant for it. And the guy is just hungry. That's the guy who I personally spent the most time with and asking people around with in terms of a rookie. And I just think he's ready. I think he's ready to take that next step and show that he is the true number 2 linebacker next to Fred Warner. And I'm just personally excited for 2020. Everyone should keep your eyes on Greenlaw, because I know year 2 players, everyone's talking about Deebo Samuel, Nick Bosa, but come on, we know what they're going to do, especially Bosa. Yeah. What is Greenlaw and those other players going to do? That's going to be interesting for me.
Right. We're not talking about the penciling guys. Talking more about Greenlaw. Emmanuel Mosley, is he going to step up? And this revenge tour, legendary revenge tour, is kind of Emmanuel Mosley as well. And Greenlaw, love it. Have you heard anything about if he's going to be the Sam, or is he going to stay at the will, or is that just something that we're going to have to wait and see on?
Just going to have to wait and see on. And I think personally I don't think personally they all don't care about the name. It's the same thing about how, who gets to start at running back, when the reality is they probably just they give it to Coleman because Shanahan wants to give him that prestige, but overall it's Raheem Mostert who gets the most carries. That's why it's a positionless. It's a position list. All that's just labels. It doesn't really mean anything. They're all defenders, So when like K'Wan Williams, for example, they say he's a slot corner, but he's more than a slot corner. He covers so astoundingly, but he plays like a linebacker. That's why he gets called the Shark. And so that's why he's just a defender to me. That's why it's like, okay, you're a linebacker, but overall you're a defender because you can pass coverage and you can play the run so well and even come in on a blitz if you need to.
Yes.
So it's just, I don't really look at it like, okay, is it going to be a Sam or Will? I don't think it matters, because I think overall it's Fred Warner is the clear-cut number 1 who's going to be every down. And I think really they're going to shuffle around between Alexander and Greenlaw, whoever's just doing better and whoever's
could be the hot hand.
Exactly, and that's a great problem to have, because that just says how much talent you have. And that's circling back to earlier. What was the point of giving up? What does it matter if they give up that 3rd and 4th round pick to move up for Aiyuk? Say it was a linebacker. You think that player was going to supersede over any of those 3? Hell no. Come on. It's a great problem to have, and it just shows you how far this team has come. And it's something that no fan should take for granted of, and just live in the moment and just be so happy that this front office, this coaching staff, and Jed York wised up and said, hey, I need to get the hell out of the way and let the football people do the football, and I just go and make the money.
He had to have a conversation with his uncle or something, because
or something.
That's something's going under the radar. He just, here, John, here, Kyle, like when they got the NFC trophy, he didn't even want it. He just gave it strictly to Kyle. So
nice little maturation process. This is good, because personally, once that Harbaugh situation went down, I thought the Niners were going to be bottom feeders for at least the next 5 years, at least. And I thought honestly it was looking to be 8, and they turned that baby around so quick.
It's insane how quick they turned it around, as far as even just looking at the starters that they got and seeing the development, as well as the players they inherited, like Jimmy Ward and Eric Armstead, and just seeing that overall maturation. It's a beautiful thing to see as a Niner fan. If we were obviously Seahawks doing that, I would say it's terrible and it's the hideous thing ever in the world. But when the Niners do it, it's beautiful.
Yep, and it's fun for me. It was better covering a good team than is a bad team, personally. So
exactly,
that's my bias take.
Exactly. I know I'm connected with some baseball writers, and they're kind of the opposite on that, to where they don't even become fans anymore, and they're like, I have my best writing when the team is terrible compared to when the team is good. I obviously I've never done a full season of baseball, game by game, but I'm just like, no matter what, if I cover my San Francisco Giants, 49ers all day, I'm still going to be a fan to the heart.
Yeah, that's good.
Awesome.
That's how you should be.
Well, thank you, Jose. I appreciate you and your time today. Go ahead and follow him on Twitter. Go ahead and give your Twitter handle out.
You guys can follow me at J Sanchez SI. I appreciate you guys for listening and right on for even considering me to come on, Leo. I'd be more than happy to hop on again, brother.
Thank you. We'll definitely do it again.